The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Monday, the 3rd day of October 2022. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman. She's Central and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Sencha, it's Monday, it's October.
Good morning.
You good?
Good. I'm here.
You're here. Well, that's
here.
a good thing.
That seems to be my answer nowadays. It's like, I'm here.
So instead of me asking, how was your weekend? What I'm going to start asking, how was Maddox's weekend? How was your son's weekend?
My son's weekend was awesome. Maddox had a really good weekend. Summersfield had their yearly barbecue, family and friends barbecue.
Oh.
I've only been once, and then it's COVID, so this is the first one they've had since COVID. But when I tell you, they do like movies, they have a grill, everybody brings a dish. It's amazing. It's a really good time. So we did that on Friday. Saturday, we need to cut some stuff out of his schedule.
That's what I'm saying. Where do you find the time?
I know this boy had football training twice. He did scrambling training and dance gumbays. Somebody had a 50th birthday down in Hamilton Princess. When I tell you, she was like, I am 50 and I am here. I don't know who she was, but happy birthday. Your celebration looked amazing. Amazing. And then yesterday, went to a football game. I have not been to a football game in years, Jamal.
I love to hear it because I read PHC finally opened back up under the lights Friday night. And if anybody who knows me knows, I grew up going to football games in Bermuda. PHC Stadium night games were my pastime.
I remember that too.
And when people are saying they have not seen that many people at a football game, I was excited, and I'm happy for Bermuda. You didn't hear all you heard. Well, the best part about that was the result: North Village beating PHC 1-0. But I'm saying I'm really happy for Bermuda because we're in a space where football brought happiness to our community. It brought family to the community, and my hope is that whatever the experience was that night leads to further experiences. And people, you heard Sandra, she just went to a football game.
I had not been. Let me say something though. Somerset were good at cricket, but we got slaughtered yesterday.
Well, what, 6-0, right? The Cougars.
6-0.
They used to call Somerset Silver City because of the greatness of the football sides. Now,
listen, and I took my son Maddox there, and that's him. So I'm from Somerset. His dad is Cougars. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a battle. And he looked up at me like, Mommy, I think I'm for Cougars.
Follow your daddy, Maddox. Follow your daddy, boy. Hey, don't let mama lead you down that road, fella.
Jesse, first game in I don't know how long, he's playing for Cougars, and he scored a goal. So, yeah.
Sold the news.
It was a good day. Good weekend. How was your weekend? I like that shirt.
Thank you. I decided to pull out my full what's it called? Catalog, what you call it, wardrobe, whatever. So yeah, just changing it up a bit, getting trying to apply some a dress code, I guess, so that I can catch you guys up. You and Sherry and Maya always so stylish, Notice I didn't mention the fellas. But anyway, greetings everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome former leader of the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party, Marc Bean, onto the show for a discussion. The daily players are Who Said It. So Sancha will be asking me a famous quote, and I will be getting it right. Call me what you want, but I will get it right. Before we bring in our Maya to do the news break early, so we have extended time with former leader Marc Bean, I just want to say, Marc and his family have played an integral role in helping Bermuda Communications Group, and in turn, this show be what we are. And not from a political perspective. To be honest, he's probably never ever come at from a political perspective, but from his wife Simone helping us become a registered business from that standpoint, to Marc actually helping launch the company when he had a conversation just over 4 years ago. I'm always appreciative to him and his family for the leadership that he's shown beyond politics to ensure people like myself and my partners understand what do for self means and how to actually live it. So I shared that just so people understand that politics is one thing, but ensuring that you're actually the words that you preach and speak, it's another. And he's never had to do that, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who is benefiting from his words and direction when it comes to, yo, bro, do it for yourself. There's no need to. When I was let go from the BTA, he was a voice that said, look, it's no time to sit around and pout like my mother. Get up, go figure something out. So I appreciate Marc Bean and his family from that perspective. So appreciate him accepting the invite to have this conversation. And I just want to let the audience know now that we will not be having this conversation live on Facebook. So the link to go over to YouTube is right there. You can just click that link and you can go on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit the notifications button. Sancha, let's bring in Maya for an early news break, and then we will bring in the former leader of the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party, the Honorable Marc Bean.
Good morning, good morning. This is a Daily Hour Newsbreak brought to you by People's Pharmacy, and happy Monday and happy start to your week, everyone.
Well, a happy Monday to you, sunshine.
Very cheery.
Yeah. Got her full wardrobe popping too. But,
got the plan, yes.
Yeah. What's happening? What happened this weekend? I'm telling you, it must be all good, right? It has to be all good, right?
I'm just going to spread the news to you guys. I'm going to let you know something real quick what happened in the headlines on Friday when it came to the House of Assembly, some updates that you guys should probably know. So keep this number in your head, $2.75 million. That is what is to be estimated for the amount of firefighters that need to come to Bermuda on a short-term period. The Minister of National Security, Michael Weeks, announced that and said in a statement, in order to maintain sufficient firefighters at the airport, an additional 25 firefighters are being contracted from overseas from now, October, until the end of March. He says it's going to be a total of 35 firefighters altogether, and that will be the estimated cost.
I think not having firefighters is a reflection of the government. It's about not preparing your community for jobs that you'll need years from now. Like right now, you should be creating policies, legislation, and programs to prepare us. Dr. Steve Perry said it over 12 years ago when he was brought to Bermuda to speak. We have to be preparing our children for things that don't yet exist. And this is a case of us not preparing for what was to come. So continue, Maya. I'm sorry. Next.
Yes. And in education, Marc Bean actually gave an update on the $150 relief package. A total of 2,253 applicants have been received, and only 933 have actually been processed for payment, while the others are still waiting to be vetted and approved.
Vetted and approved. I still have issues with that whole 150. But hey, if you're a taxpayer, yeah, that's on you. Go ahead. Sanchi, you didn't get a 150, right?
My son's in private school.
Oh, I know. That's why I said it.
School.
I'm just not in trouble. Don't mind me. What else you got for us,
I said it. Sorry.
Also in the House, Minister Tanae Furbert reminded everyone about the newly made Gender Affairs Council, which will assist the government in bringing experiences of women and men to influence decision-making. Members of the community are still being asked to join if they wish to join and be a part of this council. You have until October 7th. She also mentioned that she's doing a new series called Nurturing Our Nation, Imperfect Parenting, which will be a combination of different panels, just helping people within the homes and families as well. Another closing report, Minister Hayward talked on the initiatives of youth employment strategy, and Minister Bean spoke on the fuel bill.
If we didn't have the Honorable Marc Bean in the wings waiting, I would have commented a bit more about some things that I think Sancha brought to my attention last night in the group. Some relief on eggs and some things or something like that that was mentioned in the house. Sorry, Sancha, I didn't mean to throw you on the bar.
I wish we could discuss it.
Yeah. We've got more days this week to discuss that, but yeah. Okay.
I always order eggs online.
Yeah. What else you got for us, Maya? Anything else?
A couple things left to go. People's Pharmacy has new opening hours. So for both of their locations in Bermuda, on Victoria Street, their hours are now Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is cutting down on their hours beforehand. And they did extend the hours in the hospital. Those hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can obviously find those updates on their website.
I have so much to say about that, but again, we'll talk about that another day. Keep that. Let me write that down. People's Pharmacy hours. Go ahead, Maya. Anything else?
Closing today's news. I think this is really good news, happy news, possibly. I'll wrap it up with a bit of community news. A ladies' boutique store, unfortunately, is going out of business, but all their new clothes items are being sold for $3 an item. So those who wish to purchase any of those clothings or want to look at them, it's a really great bargain. You could contact Nana Peggy at 297-1624. That's 297-1624.
All righty. What's the weather looking like today?
It's going to be looking a little bit cloudy and a couple of showers actually out there today. So make sure you have your umbrella on hand and stay out of the rain as possible as you can. It's going to be 82 degrees Fahrenheit.
All right, Sancha, you got any days of the year for us?
I do.
All right. What day is it?
Sorry. Today is Mean Girls Day. Mean Girls come around and October 3rd. We are celebrating this jazzy day by initiating the best possible programs such as Try the Worn Out, Speech Fetch, Say Yes to Plastics. This cult classic is definitely worth a yearly day of remembrance. Do you watch Mean Girls, Jamal?
Yeah.
I don't even know what Mean Girls is.
No, let's try not to be mean. And today is National Mean Girls Day.
It's October 3rd.
All right, folks.
It is an iconic movie. Okay.
We ain't doing Mean Girls today. We got. People think some people are mean every day, and I'm not one of them. But
on Wednesday, I am wearing pink. That's what I'm gonna say.
Wearing pink Wednesday.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you before Wednesday without pink, I guess.
Bye, guys.
All righty. Folks, do not go anywhere. As stated, if you want to engage during this conversation with the Honorable Marc Bean, you need to switch over to YouTube now. It will not be live on Facebook. We will be coming off Facebook immediately during this break. Stick with us. Up next, the Honorable Marc Bean.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's, I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's Next Level. Wake up in the morning with enough coffee to keep you running throughout the entire day. Your pet at home deserves the best. Stock up on dog food to keep your puppy happy. Need a quick, tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's Next Level. Why go anyplace else?
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dandy Town Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
All righty, welcome back to the big show, Sancha Durham. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed on our website, thedailyhour.com. Just go do it right now so you don't miss a chance for updates, promotions, prizes, and more. Also, if you're on the go and you can't watch us, you can always listen to us live every day, Monday through Friday, when we are live. Just download the BCG Radio app, available for Apple and Android devices. Also, you are on YouTube. Do it right now. Subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the that button that gives you notifications. You know, that light thing, that bell. Yeah, hit that bell. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the morning. We have the Honorable Marc Bean in the background. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Morning. Welcome. Bless. Give
morning.
thanks. Morning, sis. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
It was about 4 years ago, August 2018, when the public hadn't heard from you since your resignation as leader of the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party. And that conversation answered a lot of people's questions. It was needed. But what I find most interesting, and those who, maybe connected with me on social media know that I've often over the years taken clips from that conversation we had, and I've shared them. And much of the stuff that you mentioned, that you said, that you predicted in that conversation within 4 years has come to be. Now, I'm not saying you're Nostradamus or, you put you on a pedestal. I'm simply saying that you kind of predicted we would be where we are, but yet, this is not me. Some people may not take you seriously or think that Marc Bean should be this leader, or that Marc Bean deserves the respect. That wasn't part of what I was going to ask you. But just let's start the show on that level. How does that make you feel as an individual, a family man, a businessman, when you've kind of pretty much at the end of that same show said, you love the people. You're not trying to take from the people, but yet they're being taught to hate people like you. Speak to that a bit before we jump into the conversation.
Well, first of all, good morning. Good morning to the listening audience. First thing is that I have to give thanks to Almighty God for giving me the ability to first speak what I spoke at that time, recognizing that who lives it knows it. And I was only expressing my experiences, knowing that what I had experienced must be seen as a warning to the rest of the country. And if people did not accept it or people undervalued what I said, then that's something that I just have to leave to them. I don't carry no burden within my heart towards persons who might have neglected what I said or undervalued what I said, because now experience is the best teacher. So 4 years later, we can reflect and look back and say, well, you know what? In fact, there was a good warning that was given to us, and some of us ignored it. Now we are at the stage where we are actually going deeper into the abyss, in my opinion. And so it's incumbent upon us to, if we're going to reflect on what happened 4 years ago, reflect on it to ensure that we can find solutions on how we can navigate out of this situation. Because to me, Bermuda is in a downward spiral. If you're flying an aircraft, any pilot will tell you that when you get to the stage of spiraling, it's because you're spinning, and you're spinning because you stalled. There's no lift under your wings, and if you have no lift under your wings, then what happens? You crash land. And so I use that analogy to basically express what I observe is happening today in the country. And so hopefully our discussion can help add to the strengthening and the resolve of the people in the country to actually think, speak, and do much better.
And I think back then you provided a lot of solutions in which we'll probably discuss today. As stated, you're a former leader of the PLP. What do you think of the current state of the political party, the government, and Bermuda?
The current state of the PLP is where I expected it to be. And it's something that comes as a result of the type of leadership that the people have chosen to follow. In terms of the party, now that's also a reflection of the other two areas that you mentioned, because leadership, it starts at the top. If we're talking about political leadership, because Bermuda is very political oriented and everyone's very attuned into what goes on politically. It's something that if your leadership is amiss, then it's almost like a rotten head, and the body starts to rot as a result also. And so everything must start at the top. And so if you see a movement towards mediocrity, if you see leadership that ignores principle, then the effects of that would basically be very negative towards the people to whom the leadership was meant to serve.
That said, you know, there's obviously a delegates conference coming up, probably one of the most talked about delegates conferences in my lifetime. And one of the reasons is that there's a leadership battle. And because of what you just touched on, the state of the leadership of the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party in terms of government and the island, a lot of people have opinions about delegates. But just from your being in the political party, explain to the people how the delegates are selected within the party and the criteria that must be met to be a delegate, because I don't think people quite understand how this works. And I know you've experienced it, as you stated 4 years ago. You've experienced the very worst of it.
To be a delegate, first and foremost, you have to be an upstanding financial member of the Progressive Labour Party. That's where it starts. And then you should be a participant within your respective branch. And by being an active participant in your branch, when that time arises that there is a need to be a delegate, usually what happens is that the delegates or the branch chairperson and the organizers, they will get together with the MP and they will have meetings and they will collectively decide or select who will be their representation at the delegates conference. And so you have to be a member first and foremost, and then it's up to what your branch determines and or what they decide or what they select or whom they select.
And just a yes or no. Obviously, there's arguments being made. This is how it's always been. Are you in agreement that this is still the best way that leaders should be chosen for their party, and in turn, if that party is the government, the Premier of Bermuda?
I have noticed a lot of conversations over the last few weeks and months regarding the effectiveness of the methods that the Progressive Labour Party and other political parties use in terms of internal selection for their party leadership. It just so happens that right now, once you're the party leader and you're the government, then the party leader usually becomes, by convention, the premier. I honestly don't have an issue with the way party leaders are selected. The problem isn't the Constitution of the Progressive Labour Party, right? That's never been a problem. The problem isn't with any of the constitutions that govern our institutions within our community. The problem, Jamal, are the persons who have chosen to administer and lead them institutions. Because remember, when the Progressive Labour Party was created and formed, and in the formative years, you had persons like Arnold Francis and Walter Robinson and Dame Lewis Brown Evans. And as you come up through the years, you see Freddie Wade. These are persons who would have recognized very early that if there was a problem with the internal structure of the institution itself, then they would have rectified it, because there are clauses in the Constitution where you can bring amendments. You know, a constitution or institution is created by man for the service of man. And so you can adjust that institution to meet your needs. But first and foremost, there has to be a willingness and ability of those persons who are involved to make the most out of the institution. And you do that by following the rules. And that is one of the biggest issues that I think we face in Bermuda, period, is part of this descent is that towards mediocrity is that we have a real hard time following rules. Now, if you want to have an effective government, right, the reality is that organized effort is the most effectual way for human beings to accomplish anything. Many hands make light work, but you also need leadership. You know, you don't, when you go and jump on an airplane with 300 people, right? All 300 people, right, have a view on this flight, but only the pilot in command, the captain, determines your destiny because he's the leader. And everyone must entrust their lives to that pilot, right, to make sure that you can get us from point A to point B as safe and expeditious as possible. The same applies to leadership within the Progressive Labour Party or any other institution that you find us participating within. So I don't have too much concerns about the methods within the Constitution of the Progressive Labour Party. I don't have concerns on how the selection is made. Okay, I actually have trust from my experience with the delegates, because I've been elected by the delegates twice. All right, one was when I assumed leadership after we lost government in 2012. And the second time was when I was challenged myself in 2014 by the late Honorable Walton Brown, and I believe it was MP Mr. Dale Butler. Okay, and the two of them challenged me 2 years into my leadership. And so I recognize that there is a mechanism for me to be challenged. It was a mechanism for me to be challenged. And it was straightforward. You just have to go through the process and use your ability to convince persons that they can trust you and you can provide leadership and direction towards what they feel is serving their interests.
I think, folks, if I want you to really, I want to highlight and emphasize what you stated, that it's not necessarily the systems in place, but the people who are.
It's very important to remember it, right? It's because we are the actors in creation. We are the ones that have a mind, a soul, and a conscience, or we should have a conscience. We're the ones that determine whether life is progressive or upful, or whether it's destructive. Okay. And so when we talk about institutions, you can point fingers and say, oh, this constitution's not working properly, or this is not working properly. It's actually not what's on paper. It starts what's here and what's here. Right. You have to have a desire to do good. So it comes by having some fiber within your structure. Right. You will want, first and foremost, to think right, to speak the truth, and do good. That's the three. That's think right, speak the truth, and do good.
That seems like asking a lot from a politician in Bermuda.
That doesn't sound like politics.
Well, I mean, it sounds a lot for people in general today because we have descended. Our standards have dropped over the years. We have moved away from our culture. We have moved away from the type of environment that we were raised in by our grandparents and our parents. We have actually gained the world and lost our soul. And so it's not just a issue in terms of politics, but you will see that accentuated within politics because, again, from a public life leadership perspective, politics is on the front line, and politics also allows you to accrue and apply power.
We've got some audience, and we'll get to the audience, but if you have any questions or comments, we will try to get through as many as possible. But there's something I want to touch on, and this has been making the rounds. WhatsApp, it's been making the rounds and conversations. But there's been talk that the Premier, David Burke, had fellow MPs sign a MOU, basically signaling loyalty to him, the individual. Have you heard about this? Do you believe this to be true? And if so, how damaging is this to the party and Bermuda?
I have heard about it. I've heard about it a few months ago. Actually, I heard about it more than a few months ago. And it's not the first time that you have had a premier seek to basically have his colleagues or her colleagues swear an oath of fidelity or loyalty to that individual person. Now, time will reveal whether or not this is actually the case. If there are members or MPs who swore or have signed an agreement or MOU or whatever it may be, basically you're giving your word in writing that you will not question or challenge the premier or his leadership, then we have a real problem, okay? Because you can't serve two masters. And in this case, you're being asked to serve an individual person, right? Instead of asking to serve the 13 or 12 or 1,100 constituents that you represent. That's who's doing you at Knockwood, right? That's actually who you represent as a servant. It's the constituents. So you can't serve the constituents and then serve an individual and think that it's going to be a harmonious type of environment or condition. And so if that's the case, then I would encourage, if there's any MPs who have signed an MOU, then you should seriously consider your position in government going forward. And I wouldn't be surprised that it is the case, because to be honest, when I look at the performance of MPs over the last few years, it's been wanting. It's been disgustingly short of the standards that I think the people of the country deserve. Well, maybe not deserve, but expect it. And so, yeah, and if it's something that the current premier required or demanded, then, you know, that's something that from a constitutional perspective is unconstitutional. For a PLP constitution perspective, it's unconstitutional. And so when we go back to the original reason that I gave that we have to have high standards, and the problem is that in Bermuda with the PLP, we have a problem following rules. Okay, then this is part of that culture or mindset that you can use the Constitution for your own benefit when it suits you, but when it doesn't, you'll quickly ignore the Constitution and do what you like. Okay, that is a mindset of disorder and disruption. It's a very old mindset. It has existed for thousands of years. Okay, and it's a mindset that I reject. It's a mindset that I think most persons would reject. And so if that is the case, then it's something that needs to be considered at the supreme body of the PLP, and that is the Delegates Conference, because it's the delegates that's supposed to have the supreme power, a very important power if you apply it using your conscience. And your conscience is the small voice within your soul that tells you to do what is right, instead of listening to the loud voice within your mind that tells you to do what you like. It's a big difference. Doing what is right and doing what you like. And I encourage everyone, if you're seeking to, whether it's with your family life or whether it's in your community life or even in political leadership, right? When it comes to how to find or raise your standards to be a good leader, then you have to be one with your conscience. You have to make a decision as to which voice within your soul, or within yourself, you're going to listen to. And the voice of your mind is the voice that tells you to do things that are tempting, do things that are destructive for your own being or those around you. And the voice of your soul is the silent, still voice. The voice that says, listen, don't go South Shore because you're late. You know, go Harbor Road. That's the quicker way. And you end up going down South Shore and you got caught speeding and you say, man, something told me not to go South Shore. The question is, what is that something and who is that something? Okay, and if we become obedient and learn to be disciplined to that voice of your conscience, then you will find that you'll be guided in a manner where you have peace and you have prosperity. This is a rule that I encourage everyone to consider, because it's something that you should cultivate within your own family. It's the same truth that you should teach your children, you should teach school students, and adults should also seek to put into practice. Because that is the basis of leadership. The basis of leadership is being obedient to God.
Well, I don't think most people tuned into this show would disagree with anything you're saying. I just think, based on the experiences of recent Bermuda, and it shouldn't be, but it seems like more of a dream, but it shouldn't be. And I think, folks who are tuned in, I think, take it as encouragement. Take it as a chance to say, you know what? Imagine if we did operate more with our conscience rather than what we like. And I just really want us to digest that for a bit. If you haven't already, please just hit the subscribe button underneath the conversation. Make sure you're subscribed. And on our website, thedailyhour.com, make sure you subscribe to the website. Sandra, over to you.
So I have been hearing, throughout the general public, that people are unhappy. They want to change, which has brought about this challenge. But the one question, they're like, okay, so there's a challenge, but it's via the delegates. Are delegates encouraged to take the public's opinion into consideration, or are they guided to do what's best for the party? And if so, how are they encouraged to vote?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I have seen commentary within the public basically downplaying or being disrespectful to the delegates of the Progressive Labour Party. Well, let me ask this question to the public. Who are the delegates? The answer is, the delegates are a reflection of a cross-section of Bermudian society. That's who they are. The grassroots tradesmen, farmers, fishermen. It could be teachers and professionals, doctors, lawyers, but they are a representation of Bermuda. And so they shouldn't be downplayed, because the first thing that delegates consider is their own well-being and interest, and also their family's well-being and interest. People join political parties, people join institutions because out of self-interest. They feel that they'll be able to benefit by being in proximity or by participating. And the delegates are no different. Now, in saying that, right, the delegates' priority isn't towards the PLP, it's towards themselves, self-interest, which isn't a negative thing at all. And so, that being the case, I trust, from my experience in knowing the delegates that I knew a few years ago, I trust that those delegates will make decisions that are ultimately beneficial to themselves, which, if you love thy neighbor as thyself, will be beneficial to everyone else. Okay, and so I have faith that the delegates will be able to sit back and assess as to the direction of the country, the direction of the party, the direction of even their families, and ask a question over the last few years: has our lives improved, or has our lives degraded and going backwards? Are we enjoying more peace and prosperity, or are we basically living in an environment of increasing impoverishment and pain? These are the questions that the delegates will have to ask themselves. Now, even when they ask themselves that question, they also should, because you get together as a group, they're going to communicate, right, within their branch. And more than likely, because when it rains, it just doesn't rain on one person's roof. The person who is affected negatively or positively, that will be shared, generally speaking, within the room, because that room is a reflection of your community. So the question is, who should the delegates be listening to? That's a serious something to consider. Because in the one hand, ultimately, you should listen to your conscience. Okay? Because let's say, for instance, they got the current incumbent leadership who have gone and pulled some strings or done whatever influence to try and get votes. and try and get the branches to vote as one group, groupthink. What happens then? What happens if you have, out of the majority of the delegates, they have been instructed or told to go ahead and vote in one direction, and that is the current leadership, for instance? Okay, would you prefer them to go in and just vote as a group and say, well, hey, yeah, we're just got to do what we're got to do mindlessly? Or should they consider and say, well, wait a minute, from when I look at how the party is and I look at how my life has been over the last few years, I think we actually might need a change. And they might want to go and have some prayer and meditation and do some inner consultation to say, well, is my conscience right with what the group is telling me to do? When I know the environment around me is saying the complete opposite. Now, if that is a case, if it is a case where you find yourself conflicted, and I'm speaking to the delegates now, okay, some would say, well, you have to vote as a group. I would say, no, I would encourage you to vote according to your conscience, because when you get into parliament, okay, and it could be a topic like, for instance, homosexuality and LGBTQ or whatever it may be, a very a highly discussed topic. We usually, traditionally, we'll say, well, it's a conscience vote. That means that the whip, right, of instruction, where you have to do what we tell you to do, is removed, and you're able to operate at a higher level. It's not a lower level, it's a higher level. And so I would encourage persons, the delegates, first of all, I respect the delegates. I know who they are, and I know what they desire. They desire what you desire. They desire what every Bermudian desires, and that's peace and prosperity. The question is do we have a government that's articulating in word and deed steps or actions that will cultivate peace and prosperity?
But you understand why people have concerns about the delegates. Let's be honest. The delegates gave Bermuda David Burt as premier. Let's just put it right there. So you would understand that they are concerned that because of how David Burt operates, if it's one thing David Burt is a used car salesman. He can sell himself to people. So I think that's more, I don't necessarily think it's and I take your point, because I felt disrespected as a delegate of the PLP when I was one. The type of thing, people think you're clueless, you have no brain, you don't understand anything, and they couldn't be more wrong. However, I think the concerns are legit for the best part, because people are concerned that people will buy into what's being sold, regardless of what's happened. Because you make sense. An esteemed lawyer once told me, Mr. Hartman, instead of not voting, just think about how has your life improved since pros and cons. If you do it like that, then you would probably your conscience will guide you into making the best decision.
Yeah.
So, but I think asking people to make a conscious vote, as say, it's not another dream. It's just,
well, first and foremost, I have a little disagreement that the delegates didn't give Bermuda David Burt, right? Well, maybe initially, but he was my deputy. Okay? And yeah, in 2016, yes. But then in 2017, within 7 months of me retiring, we went to an election. It weren't the delegates that made David Burt the premier and gave him another term or 2 terms. It's the people of the country. You understand there was a difference. And so we're all responsible for what we're experiencing now. We reap what we sow. Voting comes with consequences, right? Whether it's good or bad. And so that means that before we start pointing fingers at others, we have to have a degree of self-responsibility. We have to say, well, what did I put in that allowed me to get this outcome? If we're not happy, then you have to look within yourself first. And that's something that we have to do as a country. Everyone, okay, you might have not voted for the PLP in 2022 or 2017, but others did. And it was enough for the PLP and David Burt to be the premier. And that's is what it is. If you have an issue with it, then we need to mature and start understanding the value of your vote and how you can apply the power of your vote to ensure that you can actually hold people to account who's supposed to serve you. If they don't hold you, if you can't hold them to account and they don't serve you effectively, then you have to remove them. It's your choice. But once you make that choice, you have to live with the consequences. And that's what people are living with today. And the consequences, I suspect they don't seem to be very enjoyable, right? It's not something that the country is excited about. I don't see no one jumping up and down and like, this is awesome. It's not like we're in Florida. Okay. And I say that because it comes down to, when it comes to leadership, there is nothing hocus pocus about leadership. You can measure leadership by key performance indicators, whether it's socially, culturally, or economically. They are measurable. And when those measures don't fit the standard that we require, then it's up to you to make that adjustment and change. If you are happy with it, then continue as you are. It's your will, it's your decision. We reap what we sow.
Yeah, essentially.
So my next question, you've been in this situation before.
Yes, ma'am.
At what point do you think a party leader should step down because it's in the best interest of the party and the country?
When your conscience tells you it's time to go. You know, in fact, when I stepped down, I can recall when I stepped down, I didn't even notify my Senate leader, who is my confidant, Mark Daniels. I didn't notify Renee Ming. I didn't notify Diallo Rabane, who were the senators that I had appointed at the time. I just stepped away, okay, because it was time for me to go. And consequent afterwards, I explained myself, but it certainly wasn't something that, you know, they enjoyed. It caught them unawares, you know. And today I look back with regret because I thought I could have handled it better. But in terms of when a leader must decide when it's time to go, you have to look within yourself. You have to see the writing on the wall. You have to see what the tide is saying. If the tide is flowing out, then you need to go with it. But if you feel that the people, for whatever reason, you're not satisfied that it's time for you to go, then you have to act according to your conscience. But there's one challenge with that, sis, is that you have a lot of people today, especially in leadership, who don't live according to their conscience. And that's a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are debates scheduled for the upcoming weeks, and those debates are specifically for the delegates. Is this normal? And is it for party only, or is the public allowed to be present during these debates?
I cannot answer in terms of what the plans are for the PLP and the delegates conference. It's outside of my space. Is it normal? No, it's not normal. Is it a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. Traditionally, from my experience, when you have a delegates conference, and you say you have two persons who put their name forward, what you have is a 10-minute opportunity to convince the delegates that you are, or what you're saying you're looking to bring to the table, you're capable of doing so. 10 minutes. Each person gets 10 minutes, and then you sit down, and then you go to a vote. And within that 10 minutes, you have to be able to have that royal art, that allows you to reach and talk. When you're speaking to the delegates, you have to reach deep into their soul. Almost you have to cultivate a oneness of non-separation, where they feel when you're speaking on behalf of them. And that is something you can't learn that in a book. It's not about being intellectual, being able to reach people deeply like that. And so that is one component. But if the delegate conference has been decided that they're going to have or adjust the format to have debates, then I don't see nothing wrong with that per se, because it gives the opportunity for the incumbent and the challenger to present their vision going forward for the country. What I am surprised is, because I do notice that they want to have, for the leadership contest, they want to have a discussion on the internal dynamics of the PLP, and then a second night they're going to have a discussion on what's happening as a country. Well, I would say that you're actually falling short, because there also should be a discussion about where the leader sees our place in the world globally, because over the last few years we actually have been functioning from a policy perspective off of international policies, especially when it comes to COVID. It weren't David Brett's idea of how to lock down the country and keep a TA form something different, but it wasn't his idea. You notice that it was an international idea. So if you're a leader, then you need to be able to articulate, where do you see our place going forward internationally? And that's beyond just going over to England and saying during the funeral or raising the topic of independence. This is a time that during the delegates conference where questions should be asked. Hey, you mentioned something about independence, or you mentioned something about COVID, then what is your vision going forward? Oh, Mr. Dickinson, what are your thoughts also? Indeed. And so it gives an opportunity for the delegates to hear, right, a vision that they can either reject or buy into.
So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
I have a very important question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I hope you can answer. What is your prediction, David Burt or Curtis Dickinson? Who would be the premier by the end of the PLP Delegates Conference?
I cannot predict. I can't predict it.
Okay.
I cannot predict it, because I don't know the delegates, and I know that there's a lot of activities going on right now by both the challenger and the incumbent to be able to get a presence in front of delegates, by going and having meetings here and there, and that's all normal. That's natural, and it's incumbent upon them to go ahead and reach out and touch base with the delegates. But in terms of who I think can win or will win, I can't say right now. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a general view in the public that David Brett is going to win it, because somehow he's manipulated the delegates enough for him to just walk right in and basically be a minority leader, right? Where it's only the delegates that voted for him. But you never know. Don't ever underestimate the delegates, because they might smile in your face. That don't mean that they support you. I remember when I retired, and David Brett and it was Dennis Lister who ran to be the leader of the PLP upon my retirement. And I think David Brett only won by about 3 or 4 votes.
4, I believe.
The majority of those votes came from the MPs.
Yeah.
Okay, so what that indicates is that when he became the leader, he did not have a large body of support within the delegates. Okay, and there's many reasons because of that. Of course, my exit was part of that, and people remembered a lot of the shenanigans that went on at that time. But in terms of who do I think will win it, I cannot say, but I would say to the delegates that you have to let your conscience be your guide.
But let me ask you this.
Yes, ma'am.
If David Burt remains premier,
yes,
what do you think the outcome would be for the next general election?
That's a good question. And I'm going to be frank, if David Burt remains the premier, right, and it's something that persons should really consider, especially internally. Don't think that the OBA is your opponent. I suspect that if David Burt was to remain premier, at the next general election, the PLP will face a similar situation that brought me into leadership in 2012.
So I'm just going to ask, based on that, are we saying there may be a party split?
I cannot speak about a party split, but what I do know is that if perchance Curtis Dickinson was to become the leader, the biggest concern that I would have going forward for Mr. Dickinson isn't the external environment, even though he would have to have a lot to grapple with externally. The biggest issue, from my experience, would be internal, because you have an element in the PLP that they're unconstitutional, and they feel that the rules are only there for their benefit, and so they will not give him the support that the country needs at the time. And that's a challenge, because I experienced it also. Remember when I became the leader in 2012, we walked into the Delegates conference and the MPs had in their mind another MP to be the leader. And when the delegates figured that out, that they were told who should be the leader, it was a complete revolt. And that's one of the reasons when my name was put forward that I ended up winning, because the delegates were sick and tired of that mindset, that mentality, right, that we saw permeate within the leadership of the PLP. Who you all think you are that you can tell us who should lead us, right? There was utter contempt and disrespect and no regard. And so the delegates responded in like kind, and they voted accordingly for change. Okay, so for Curtis Dickinson, his biggest issue is going to be having to navigate the internal dynamics of the party, because you have some elements there who are not satisfied with not having power, and that's just a reality.
All right, we've got a lot of questions, and this show is
all right. I'm gonna cut it.
I want to go through the audience questions as much as possible. So let's start with Charles H. Jeffers II. He asked, this question was asked to your earlier comment about the current way the party leader is elected. He said, I respect Mr. Bean's opinion, but is the current system as democratic as it can be or should be? Meaning, are we okay with how the leader is chosen, because that's always been the way?
People are having issues now. They didn't have issues last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. But I think that's a reflection of the anxiety that's in the country over leadership today, right? So now we're going to look at what is the most effectual way to bring leaders into place. Mr. Jaffa's respectful. I understand what you're saying, but again, it's not the system, right? It's not the methodology to become the leader, right? The problem is when people become leaders, right? They need to have, and I used this term before, and I said I weren't going to use it again, but I'll use it now. You need to have clean hands and a pure heart. That's all internal, right? And once you got that in place, I'm not concerned whether the methodology or how the leader's chosen, because the leaders who's chosen is going to lead righteously.
Yeah. All right, let's go to, we got Karen Simmons just asking, do you think that party politics remains relevant / appropriate in Bermuda, or is there a need to shift to independence? If so, why?
When people say a shift to independence, they're speaking about a bygone era when you had the 40 thieves, right? And you had 36 or 30 independent MPs, right? And society has progressed since then, or grown or evolved since then, where you have party politics. Is party politics a negative? Is it bad? Not necessarily. I don't think so. Is the Westminster system bad? Not necessarily, because you need that counterweight. You need that check and balance within any political system, unless it's a dictatorship. Okay? The challenge isn't the system. The challenge is the people.
That puts it right on him. Teray Tull, she's asking, any words for young people who are apathetic to the current state of affairs?
Well, as you get older, the opportunity for you to do better in terms of assuming roles in leadership in Bermuda is going to arise, and sooner than you think. And what I would do if you are not pleased with what you see today, then first you need to go and educate yourself as to the various options and ideas out there in terms of politics, and start developing your ability to be a servant within your community. And there's many ways to do that, but prepare yourself to be a leader. And you can do that within working within your community clubs. You can do that within your church or any other institution, right? You can do that by helping out in schools, etc. But most importantly, if you're a young person, I'm going to encourage you to do something that my generation has neglected for the last 10, 20 years. And that is that we have moved away from living a self-disciplined life. Okay? Self-discipline is the key to human power. As a man thinketh, they becometh. Right? And so it's very important for young people. This is something that I spoke to Barclay Institute during the prize giving a few years ago. Right? And it's important for them to understand that you have to be prepared to think, speak, and do good. It sounds simple. Okay? Think, speak, and do good. If you can cultivate that within your being, then regardless of where you go and what you do, you're always going to be in a position to be of strength and influence and progress. Okay, so that it all starts internal. You can go to school, you can get a degree in political science, you can become a lawyer, you can become anything. Okay, but none of those attributes or abilities that you learn through a formal education can substitute for the ultimate education, and that is the education of knowledge of self and how you can love thyself and love thy neighbor as thyself.
Indeed.
That's the basis of leadership.
Dr. Maria Seaman says, we don't hear from other parties continuously. That's why PLP remains in power. Well, this leads to a question I believe we got on our Instagram and emails as well to you. What is the latest with the FDM?
The Free Democratic Movement. The FDM is in good stead. And now that we're here, I would explain to people that everything that's occurred has occurred right according to our plan and schedule. We figured that if at this point in time, 2 years after the election, right, that we would be at a stage where people would be asking, well, where's the FDM? You guys are quiet, you're silent, et cetera, right? And I would say that we have been more effectual by being silent over the last 2 years than if we had came and been very much out front publicly. Okay, because who lives it knows it. And what was required over the last 2 years is for the Bermuda public to experience what we are warning the public about. And it just so happens that in 2022, when the FDM was created, the FDM created a platform that is actually an alternative of government. Some persons might disagree with its view and approach, but when you look at government today, nothing seems to be working. So there's got to be an alternative, and that's what the FDM was created to be. I can say this, that the FDM as an institution has strengthened itself institutionally over the last 2 years. We have a constitution that we have had in place for the last 18 months, a full constitution that covers all the bases in terms of administratively being prepared to assume government and have the support base of the people behind it. So we have a constitution, and we have bank accounts, etc., in the FDM's name. The challenge is that when we were created, because we were created within 7 days, everyone was able to come in. Whoever wanted to participate were able to participate. And what I found, there was great difficulty in dealing with some personalities within the FDM. Within 3, 4, 5 days, personalities started to try and undermine or shift the direction of the FDM from where it was originally created for. And that's an issue because you didn't create it. If you didn't create it, then who are you to try and change it? And that's what I had said a few months ago, after it was formed, is that those who want to create an institution that fits their idea of what the country needs, you're free to go and do it. But don't do it with the Free Democratic Movement. So we had to actually stop for a second and allow life to take its course, so everyone can see for themselves what's valuable and what's not in terms of the FDM. So we are okay, right? And if David Brett, getting back to Sister Sancho's question, I believe, if David Brett was to get reelected, and over the next 2 years, it's not going to bode well for the PLP. The PLP needs to be cleaned up. And I'm saying that as the former leader. And I'm also saying that as the founder of the Free Democratic Movement. Okay? It needs to be cleaned up. At the same time, I am willing and able to assist the Progressive Labour Party as a government to go from strength to strength, to clean up, right? Because the country requires it. We can't really wait for 2 years.
Well, that brings me to the next question, and maybe this will give clarity. So we got a question on Instagram last night to ask, what advice would you give Curtis Dickinson in the lead up to this challenge of the Premier David Brett for leadership of the party? But also, what advice would you give him going forth, regardless of the result?
Well, first of all, I've never met Curtis Dickinson. Never met him personally. I knew his mother, a very refined and beautiful lady, and I know his sister, and again, a very refined and beautiful lady, but I've never met Brother Curtis. And so it's, I guess, in time, one day I probably will have the opportunity for us to have a chat. But if I was to give him some advice now, I could only speak from my own experience on what I know resonates with the delegates. And what I know resonates with the delegates is what I had articulated a little earlier. You need to be able to speak to the delegates in a manner in which they can relate. You need to be able to speak to them and put yourself in their shoes and have them put themselves in your shoes, right? And if you can do that and address the most important issues that they face on a day-to-day basis, then I think that they will give you an opportunity, because I suspect that even though some of the delegates might have supported David Brett over the months and years, many could have a little weariness at this point, because change could be good. Some might want some change because they see that the direction that the Brett administration is taking the country is not what they expected, and is certainly not beneficial for their family. And so I would give him that advice, is to put yourself in their shoes and speak in a manner in which they can relate. And don't be like a lot of these bloggers out there who, for some reason, always overplay their hands and speak about delegates and PLP members in a very disrespectful way, right? And you wonder why electorally you find yourself in the wilderness. In other words, every cause has its effect. If you want to bring change and it comes to reasoning, it's not through talking down and thinking that people are lesser than you. Your attitude has to change if you want attitudes to change. But every cause has effect. So I would encourage Curtis Dickinson to go ahead and touch the hearts of the people, and that starts with him giving his heart to the people.
Indeed. And before you go, what would you say to, people? You spoke about it 4 years ago. People are struggling. You spoke. I don't think you spoke it into existence. You just basically stated, this is what is likely going to happen. And I don't want to quote you wrongly, but we have all the recordings where you basically said the people are going to show up belly empty, right? It's happening. You see an extreme exodus, right? You see, people as vocal. I mean, you saw a lady at the Labor Day march with a sign burnt out, right? What would you say to the hopeless right now in a bid to, lift them up?
Boy, you're asking me to be like Moses. Right? Because such is the state. I'm not in Bermuda, but I feel it. I get phone calls every day from people of all walks of life. And I know that the degree of sufferation has increased exponentially in Bermuda over the last few years, since the last time we talked. And I know that people are feeling broken and dejected. In fact, it seems like a spirit of death and destruction is hovering over the country. Again, that spirit is a reflection of leadership. I could think about the amount of persons who have buried their family members and loved ones, whether it's through COVID or whether it's through murder or it's other instances. There has been a spirit of death in the country, and that needs to be lifted. And so first we need prayer. And when I say prayer, I'm not getting religious, you know. I'm speaking to people to look within themselves, right? Because that's the first place you're going to find your strength. It's putting trust in yourself before you put trust in any man or any woman politically. That's the first thing you have to recognize. Take control of yourself. Take control of your family. Take control of your youths. Take control in terms of control. Start guiding and participating in the things that mean the most, and that is your family first. Stop getting distracted with all these bells and whistles of modern society, because all it does, it allows you to gain the world and you lose your soul. And there we find ourselves like empty vessels. So if you find yourself dejected, you have to look within. And then you have to decide from a political level, do you want to participate in a manner which can strengthen the country? If you want to do that, then start participating. Start participating. First and foremost, as someone mentioned, it all starts at home. It all starts at home. The primary educational institution, the primary institution in our country is the family unit. Okay, and there has been an attack on the family unit. The traditional family unit has been attacked at the core for too long. And now it's time for real men to stand up and real women to stand up, right? And start participating in rebuilding the core of our society, and that's our family. Each one of us have the ability to do our part. If you have an issue with your baby mama or your baby father, right? We're all been through it. You need to find a way to reconcile and put that aside for the sake of your children. Okay? You decided to lay down with them and have a child. Then you need to figure out how you can work together as a team. However you do it, to make sure that your youths are raised properly, because you can't talk about our children are killing each other and then it's somebody else's fault. Now I'm starting to get a little fiery, right? Because there's a lot on my mind. I'll just pause.
Well,
we have to look within ourselves, Jamal. We have to look within ourselves, brother. Okay, we need to become the masters of our destinies, and that's why I mentioned earlier about becoming one with our conscience, because we find ourselves wayward because we have lost ourselves. Can't love what you don't know.
I'll say this much. Are you going to come back and continue the conversation this month?
Of course.
All right. We will have him back.
My pleasure.
I think it's so much more to go, because as you ended it, we hadn't even talked. This was a surface level conversation. We haven't even
starting to get warmed up too.
Exactly, right? So there's much more of what we can speak about. And so we will be bringing the Honorable Marc Bean back to continue this conversation, folks. If you're tuned in on YouTube, thank you. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button so you know when he's coming on, and subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com, so you know when he's coming back so that we can continue. They obviously are appreciating you out there in the audience. So I
appreciate them too. I miss you too, you know.
I think we may have lost him, folks. I think we may have lost. Oh, you're back. Okay, we froze just now. But I want to thank you for taking the time, and definitely we will be scheduling you to come back within the next couple weeks. So appreciate you. Thank you to you and your family for doing this, and we'll be in touch.
Cool. Bless.
All right. The Honorable Marc Bean, folks, if you appreciated that conversation, give us a thumbs up, hit the notification bell, make sure you subscribe to the website. Do not go anywhere. We're going to do a giveaway when we come back. Just because we had the Honorable Marc Bean, we're going to do a giveaway when we come back. Do not go anywhere. And Sancho's going to try to get me with the Daily Play. Stick with us.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security, there's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
All righty. Thank you so much to the Honorable Marc Bean for taking the time to engage with us this morning. Folks, if you appreciated the conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Please make sure you share these conversations with your friends, your family, your colleagues, water cooler. These are conversations. It's a lot of in that was like, hey, this is on you if you want better. Anyway, thanks again to One Communications, People's Pharmacy, Medical House, and Linders for ensuring that we can have these kind of conversations. Time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol, and Bermuda Trivia now available throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. Sancha, I'm ready. What you got for me?
Are you ready? I feel like this is our inspiration all in one.
All right.
At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. You ain't
Dr. King?
Nope. Give you another chance.
Let me. Oops, wrong. Let me. Oprah.
Male.
Audience.
It's a male.
Nelson Mandela.
No, not political.
Black male.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Denzel Washington.
Man, shucks. See, my mind takes me straight politics, but Denzel, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, let's wrap it up. Final thoughts on today's conversation. What's your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. It was a lot said in that hour.
Hold on, before you go, folks, for today's giveaway, hashtag Bermuda Trivia. Hashtag Bermuda Trivia for today's giveaway. We're giving you 2 editions, the volume 1 and cup match edition of Bermuda Trivia. Go ahead, Sanch. Sorry.
It was a lot packed in that hour. Whole time I was engaged, learning. As I say, this is why I love to be on this show. Even given another insight of the delegates and how they might be voting. Just kind of predictions of what would happen if there isn't a change in leadership, and why there would not be a change in leadership. A lot was said today. Conversation definitely needs to continue, but yeah.
I think Marc, is an honest. I think he speaks from his heart, right? I think whether we agree or whatnot, he speaks from his heart always when he's communicating. And to some, that may be aggressive or whatnot, but I think if we actually focus, and it's something that I've learned, like a lot of the things that we encounter, it's within, like so much of it's within. And I think that instead of dismissing people because of whatever perceptions we have, we can learn a lot from, especially those we disagree with. I'm not saying that Marc Bean's the savior for Bermuda, by no means. I don't think he's saying that. What I do think, though, is that we need to consider things. We need to consider how our opinions affect the result that we want. What do I mean by that? Publicly, I haven't given an opinion necessarily about the delegates, right? Haven't been one. But that said, we didn't get to ask whether or not the delegates should be made public. At the end of the day, I think times change, and as times change, some things will evolve. But if there's one thing that must remain present, in my opinion, are cultural traditions that don't inflict harm mentally, emotionally, or physically. And I think we must not lose a sense of who we are while striving to so-called improve the lives that we currently have and want. So it's a lot packed into this. I mean, it's so much deeper, Sancha. But I'm grateful for the conversation. And my hope is that whatever the result is what's best for Bermuda. And truthfully, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do not think that David Burt as premier is what's best for Bermuda. That's my personal opinion, not speaking on behalf of the Daily Hour, not speaking on behalf of Bermuda Communications Group. My personal opinion, I do not believe that he is in the best interest of Bermuda going forward. I'm not calling those who disagree the names or whatnot. No, truth is, my thoughts go deeper. And my deeper thoughts say, I'm not quite sure Black Bermudians, which represent the majority according to the last census, are going to get the best of politics based on the current system. So that's probably where the Honorable Marc Bean and I disagree. Let's do the giveaway. All right, folks, let's do this giveaway. Let's do the giveaway, Sancha.
Let's go.
Bermuda trivia cards on the line, folks. Here we go. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Okina McGowan, congratulations to you. Congratulations, Okina McGowan. Folks, don't forget, send an email to engage@thedailyhour.com. Also, please ensure that you subscribe. Do it right now. Just subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Well, you're only watching on YouTube. Yeah. Just hit the subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe. We will be having the Honorable Marc Bean back. We will have, actually this week, we're having former Minister Dr. the Honorable Nalitha Butterfield on as well. So stick with us. Sancha, you've got some daily inspiration for us before we head out?
I just gave it to you, Jamal. I can say it again, though.
Oh, daily was
Yeah.
daily
At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington.
All righty. Thank you. Got it twice. Nicole Walker, please send an email to engage@thedailyhour.com. We'll ensure that you get your prize. All right, folks. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House, One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. And we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Sancha Durham. I'm Jamal Hartman. My friends, please do make it a safe and a great day. We're out.